that foreclosure sign on my lawn wasn't just a piece of paper. It was the tombstone for a promise I'd made to my late husband, Robert, that I'd live out my golden years in the home we built together. In the hall, the old grandfather clock ticked away the seconds, a sound so familiar it was like the house's own heartbeat. It ticked when we brought our children home, it ticked when Robert passed, and it was ticking on the day I signed my life away. This is the story of how the key that was supposed to unlock my financial freedom ended up locking me out of my own life forever. This is how I signed a reverse mortgage and lost my home. For most of my life, this house was my sanctuary. Robert and I bought it when we were barely in our 20s. We filled it with life. I remember standing in that half-painted kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee and Robert humming along to the radio as we did the Sunday crossword at the table. I laughed and said, "We'll grow old here, won't we, Robert?" And he smiled that smile of his and said, "Forever and a day, Eleanor." We painted the nursery yellow for Sarah, and I can still see the scuff marks on the doorway where we measured her height year after year. The garden was his masterpiece. After he passed, tending to his rose bushes felt like a conversation with him. This year, one of the oldest bushes started to wither. I kept watering it anyway, whispering, "Just hold on a little longer." I suppose I was talking to myself. But life, as it does, had other plans. With Robert's pension gone, my Social Security check felt impossibly small. The water heater broke. I started cutting back. I stopped buying my favorite Earl Grey tea. I canceled the Sunday paper. Each tiny sacrifice was a fresh humiliation. My independence, the thing I valued most, was slipping away. I tried to write to the children once. I sat at the kitchen table, pen in hand, the words, "I need help," staring back at me. But the shame was a physical weight. I ripped the letter into tiny pieces, my hands trembling. This isn't just my story. It's the story of a system that profits when you're too proud to ask for help. I felt trapped in my beautiful, memory-filled house, with the walls slowly closing in. I thought I had found peace, but the silence wasn't peace. It was the breath before the storm. That's when those TV commercials started to feel like they were talking directly to me. A handsome, trustworthy actor speaking about the pot of gold I was sitting on. "Unlock your home equity," they'd say. "Stay in the home you love. It's a government-insured program." So I made the call. The man on the phone was so kind. He listened to my story and told me I was the perfect candidate for a HECM, insured by the FHA. That word insured made it sound as safe as a savings bond. A few days later, a representative sat at my kitchen table. He spread out a dizzying stack of paperwork. I should have known when he breezed past the interest rates. Variable, added to the balance, you don't have to worry, and called the fees standard calculations. The day I signed the final papers, the room went quiet. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall seemed to be counting down to something I didn't understand. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a quiet, solemn trade, and I prayed I was on the right side of it. When the money arrived, I fixed the roof. I paid off that monstrous credit card. And then I walked to the corner florist and bought a bouquet of yellow roses, just like Robert used to. A new start, I told myself, but nothing that perfect ever stays. A few weeks later, I called the number for that kind, patient man. It was disconnected. The friendly face of the company was a ghost. And that ticking clock? I should have listened closer. For the first year, it was perfect. The stress was gone. The last Christmas we had in the house, I bought a big turkey and all the trimmings. The turkey was dry that year, a little overcooked, but I smiled anyway, desperate to believe everything was fine. Then the dream began to unravel. The first hint of trouble came in a plain white envelope from a loan servicer I'd never heard of. It was a formal demand for proof of my property tax payment. The voice on the phone was clipped, cold. "Ma'am, failure to comply is a default event under the terms of your legally binding contract." Default? The word was a splash of ice water. Then came the monthly statements. I sat down and opened one, the sound of the grandfather clock ticking in the silence. My blood ran cold. The loan balance was ballooning with compounding interest, service charges, inspection fees, a dozen little cuts I never saw coming. I was watching the equity in my home, my life savings, being devoured. The real turning point was my daughter Sarah's visit. "Mom," she said gently, "what happens if you need more care someday?" She showed me an article. If I ever had to move into a nursing home for more than 12 consecutive months, the entire loan would become due. The house would have to be sold. This wasn't a lifeline. It was a trap, designed to snap shut the moment I was at my most vulnerable. Sarah looked at the statement with tears in her eyes. "Mom, why didn't you tell us?" My son, Michael, just sat there, his head in his hands. "This was supposed to be our home, Mom." Their pain was a fresh wound. I had tried to protect them, and instead, I had robbed them of their future. The fear was deafening. I was a guest in my own home, and the clock was ticking. I thought I'd found my rhythm again, a fragile balance of paying bills and tending the garden. Then the stairs reminded me I was getting older. The crisis came not with a bang, but with a fall. The rehab facility was a sterile white world. I'd lie awake, my hip aching with a pain that was nothing compared to the deep, gut-wrenching ache for my own bed. The property tax bill arrived while I was away. The due date came and went. When I finally returned home, weak and leaning on a walker, I found an envelope sent by certified mail. Notice of default and intent to foreclose. The entire loan balance was due immediately. 30 days? Panic seized me. My children sprang into action, but it was too late. The lender had started legal proceedings. The house was evaluated by strangers like a used car, its worth reduced to a number on a spreadsheet. Our own attorney told us the loan documents were ironclad. The day the foreclosure sign was hammered into my front lawn, a neighbor saw me and just shook her head, a look of pity that burned hotter than any legal notice. The man hammered the sign right next to the yellow roses Robert had planted. Packing up 40 years was a funeral. Each item I touched was a memory. The birthday card from Sarah, covered in glitter. A handwritten recipe for apple pie, stained with cinnamon. One china dish from our wedding. I held them to my chest and just sobbed. The last thing I packed was one of Robert's old, worn cardigans. I held it to my face, just to remember the smell, then folded it gently into the box. Before I left, I walked through the house room by room. In my mind, I whispered to Robert, "I'm so sorry, my love. I tried." I stood in the hallway and noticed the silence. The grandfather clock had stopped. Its heart had finally broken, too. Standing here today, I want to talk to you, not as a statistic, but as a friend. Pour yourself a cup of tea and let me tell you what I wish someone had told me. First, seek truly independent advice. The loan officer is a salesperson. Their job is to sell you a product. Pay an elder law attorney to be your advocate. The lender is not your friend. Second, understand the default triggers. You are still on the hook for property taxes, homeowners insurance, and home maintenance. A health crisis should not trigger an automatic foreclosure crisis. Third, involve your family from day one. My pride was a wall I built between myself and the people who loved me. They need to understand this loan because they may be the ones left to deal with the fallout. Finally, treat a reverse mortgage as the absolute last resort. Last night, I wrote a letter I'll never send. It started, "Dear Eleanor, don't sign. Pride is not a roof over your head. It's a crack in the foundation. Ask for help." I imagined Sarah's voice, clear as a bell, saying, "We didn't want the house, Mom. We wanted you." The dream of a secure retirement in the home you love is a powerful one. An entire industry is built on selling it. But these are not government benefits. They are complex, high-cost loans with life-altering risks. Before you or anyone you love signs that paper, please remember my story. Your home is more than an asset. It's your life. Protect it. Question everything. I couldn't give my children the house we built, but maybe I can give them and you this warning. Maybe this story is the one heirloom I have left to pass on. If you're sitting in your house right now, wondering if you should ask for help, this is your sign. Ask. I still set out 2 cups, but now I pour one for you. So you'll remember. I lost my house, but if this story saves yours, then maybe I didn't lose everything. I volunteer now at the local senior center. I sit with women just like me, listen to their fears, and tell them my story. Out there, the house stands empty, but I like to think that in the garden, by the front lawn, one of Robert's yellow rose bushes is still struggling, still trying to grow. Maybe one will bloom again, despite it all. Watch this next for another gripping tale of retirement gone wrong, plus the lesson you can't afford to miss.